What really is it in us that wants the truth? Nietzsche, beyond good and evil. I called in at the university to cancel my seminars for the week. I needed the time if I was about to embark on a new case. Alfred, a parrot I'd bizarrely adopted, or perhaps he had adopted me, now lived a gregarious and colourful life in my office, tended to by Mrs. Simpson, the cleaner, a night security guard, and many students. He was also happily poisoning the life of my new head of department, the self-entranced Audrey Pritchard, who looked like a cross between a bloodless mannequin and a Regency fop. She wanted me gone, and in a frenzy of psychological displacement, she hated Alfred. He stepped deftly from his perch onto my shoulder and nibbled my ear, whispering, "Onward, onward," rode the 600 from the charge of the Light Brigade, while I did a search on Andy Hebden. We agreed terms. I got as much information as I could and a photograph of Marty looking out of place in a cream suit behind a desk, Andy standing beside him. The name Jacques Brissot echoed for me. Perhaps the current Brissot was using a false name. I was still pondering the little I knew of him and planning my next move when I boarded the train at Snow Hill. I turned over what little I knew. He was a Girondist writer and pamphleteer during the French Revolution, a cultured man who wrote on the philosophy of law and was one of the formative minds behind the revolution. He was guillotined by his own people as revolution capsized into the terror. Considering he'd been dead for 220 years, it was unlikely this was the man I was looking for, but there might be a connection. I know you have a lot of money to waste on bad pop art, that you have excellent taste in personal assistance, that you like being king of the pile. Your offices are on the 20th floor of a 20-story building, and that imponderables absorb you. The hamster on the wheel. Hamsters are nocturnal, so I suspect you sometimes put a cover on the cage in the day so that it'll think it's night and start his workout routine. You enjoy watching him or her. I also know that you have a problem, otherwise you wouldn't have contacted me. I telephoned the number for Jacques Brissot, but the line went dead. I looked out at the station, was aware that someone sat down next to me, but when I turned, they had gone. An envelope lay on the table. I picked it up and stood, trying to see who it had been, but there was only a confusion of crowds on the platform and no one in the carriage walking away. I turned it over and saw my own name written in neat copper plate. Inside, in the same copper plate, R.I.P. People always think they want the truth. Sometimes that's the last thing they want. Just find him and be a clever bastard in your own time. Our aunt will start to get upset if he doesn't visit her. She brought us up. Also, I have something on Brissot, a document that will finish him. If need be, I'll give it to you, but I want to know what's happened to Marty, and proof is Brissot. We were looking to have the money revitalised, let's say. He was also selling some of these Warhol travesties. One of them, bloody can of soup, worth 300 grand. Marty hasn't been seen for 4 days now, nor's the money or the paintings, and don't ask if I trust him, I do. He's either being kept somewhere or he's dead. The man he went to, Jacques Brissot, is where you should start. You'll have a bloody hard time trying to find him. He's tight as a nun's corset. I want the truth. You've just got a job. I rent the 19th floor too, to keep things nice and private. And I hate all this pop art crap. My brother Marty likes it, and he's disappeared. You want me to find him? I want you to find him. He had 500,000 on him. Andy will see you now, Dr. Rook, she said. Andy, so her talents probably extend beyond office hours. She was the voice I'd heard on the phone. Her name, a plastic sign on her desk, informed me was Dancy. Behind him, a panoramic glass wall displayed all the delights of a Midland skyline on a grey English day. Reckon he knows more than he lets on. He goes round and round on that wheel for hours. Why? He asked without looking up. Faint touch of a Brummie vowel problem. The hamster seemed to have picked up speed. I was cheered by the possibility of danger to come and by the thought of supper with Lizzie on Friday. 2 days to wait. We drown in a bland storm of images and no one really looks at anything. You know, by now I am turning into Victor Meldrew, as darling daughter, Cass, tells me constantly. I decided to get the train and watch the English countryside flash by in a dull pastel of rain and disconsolate cows and sodden sheep. Drenched fields that seemed dissolved of life, housing estates in ramshackle geometrics of rectangles and squares, a somnolent hoodie dance around bonfire heaps of corpsed mobile phones while a DJ scratches a rap from the open red mouth of a long-dead lion. She looks at my scuffed leather jacket and ancient hush puppies and winces slightly. I guess this does not signal the beginning of a seamy flirtation leading to heartache, torn sheets and regret. He's finished his library book. In training for a heavyweight fight, going for a Guinness Book of Records title? Because it's there, I said. Hebden looked at me for the first time and smiled. What do you know about me, Dr. Rook? He asked. I smelled the familiar whiff of gunpowder when a new case starts. Uncharted territories, the tyranny and freedom of the unknown. As I walk into a reception area, a red-headed young woman with a clipboard and a bust like a twin set of torpedoes eyes me over horn-rimmed designer glasses that she probably doesn't need. A large Coke can sat beside a dozen Marilyn Monroes. Images for the sake of images, as if status is arbitrary and things only have substance when they are represented and reproduced en masse, behind which the real world is disappearing. She knew who I was, so that meant not many visitors. The offices probably a front for whatever the Hebdens really do. She stood and walked in front to code open a door. Her legs, unlike the prints, were works of art, pure Michelangelo. Andy and Marty, haulage contractors, a picture of a shining fleet of lorries, specialising in East European runs, so probably drug-related, as most crime is. Hebden Enterprises was a canal-side suite of offices on the top floor, the walls pointlessly decked with Warhol and other pop art prints that supposedly gave a new way of seeing the everyday world. Counties arbitrarily bounded, everything weighed down by some unspeakable calamity to come, overtaken by slow, disconsolate apocalypse. If Brugger was alive, I wonder what perfidy he would find to represent. Perhaps a festival of parasites and leeches in ill-fitting clothes and baseball caps. I was buzzed through into a room the size of a landing strip with more pop art on the walls. There were no taxis, so I walked across the parquet floor, each half a metre square, and I resisted the urge to count them, towards a man sitting behind a glass and aluminium desk. He was watching a champagne hamster trundling on a wheel in a cage on his desk. Andy Hebden was 50 and going to seed rapidly, despite the attempts of a Pierre-Cardin suit, £200 haircut and fake tan to suggest otherwise.